This is ILTA Radio, the source for legal technology practices and ideas to help your career, delivered to fit your busy schedule. ILTA Radio, get tuned in.
Welcome to today's ILTA podcast, Being Proactive About Cybersecurity. I am Tommy Moreo, principal of Cornerstone.IT, and I would like to thank ILTA for making this content and content such as this as a podcast easily accessible to all of its members. A majority of our day-to-day operations at Cornerstone have been operating and working remotely, and so this is very, very applicable to us. And we're looking forward to sharing our experiences on how we both as a company and our clients have had success in this area. And for all those that stay to the very end of this podcast, we have a gift for everybody. Tom Nohs will be providing listeners with a security check guide. And with no further ado, I'd like to introduce two of our subject matter experts, Tom Nohs, who's a certified information system security professional, and Neil Failla. So I'd like to introduce Neil Failla to start. Neil, can you talk a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Tom. Neil Failla here. I'm the operations manager here at Cornerstone IT. I'm also head up the managed service operation at Cornerstone as well, and any security responses we have for our clients. I've been at Cornerstone 16 years and came up through the ranks as a systems engineer, and now I'm leading a team of about 25.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. And Tom Nohs?
Sure. So my name is Tom Nohs. I am a cybersecurity professional, CISSP, as Tom mentioned. I actually have been working in the information technology field for close to 30 years now. I actually worked in Manhattan for a major law firm as the IT director there for probably close to 15 years of my 24 years that I was there. The last 9 years is all about cybersecurity. 2009, as anybody should remember that's been in the law firm industry that long, is when everything changed. So we're in a new era within the law firm industry, and a lot of it is about cybersecurity.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tom. Yeah, it is very exciting and very, very fast moving. And so we have three main topics that we would like to hit on. One being proactive about security and how to make it easier to detect what's happening on your network, what has occurred, how it occurred, and then how do you maintain that level of security awareness proactively? How do we maintain it? So let me introduce a question to Neil. What does it mean to be proactive from a cybersecurity perspective?
That's mostly to be proactive. You want to be taking steps ahead of time to change the security footing of the firm. Look at having a small security audit completed in your environment. Things such as simple as an internal or external scan of your network, reviewing your user accounts and memberships along with permissions on the internal server network infrastructures can be some great first steps that can go a long way to making the environment safer from an attack.
That's a great point, Neil. A lot of that is configuration based, right? Some of the most basic steps of having a screen lockout, right, after a specific period of time. So this way the screen goes to a password protection. Tom, can you give us some of the basic steps that some of the firms that you've operated with have done to be proactive?
Sure. So as you mentioned, the screen lockout is one of the, that's a basic setting. And again, some of these things that we're discussing and talking about are really basic configurations that comes with the Windows domain controllers and your Windows 10 devices. All this stuff is configurable on the local PCs. I do want to add one thing that hasn't been mentioned. The number one proactive thing you can do is awareness training. I cannot express this enough. 93% of all hacks start through a tainted email or malformed URL. Training users and making them aware of how to spot an unusual behavior is one of the most effective cybersecurity tools out there to protect against the hack.
And that's a great point. Yeah. And I'll segue to another question right to you. Sorry to interrupt you on that. But so how can you make it easier to detect? So let's say you train your people and then somebody clicks that link. How can you make it easier to detect what occurred and how it occurred on the network?
And I'm assuming that's for me, Tom. Tom knows, right?
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah.
I figured you could go right into the event IDs or something.
That's good, yeah. So these tools are built right into the Windows 10, Windows Servers operating system. And again, if you do not have a SIM or a log management tool if you turn on your event ID 4688, which actually captures every single process that runs on a PC, when you click on a malware or URL, it's running a process on the local PC, and that will get captured in that event log. It's as simple as everybody remembers the WannaCry ransomware. Well, that actually showed up in the event log. So all you simply got to do was look for that WannaCry.vbs in the 4688 events, and you would have caught that before it actually locked all the PCs up. So
That's great.
Yeah, 4688, that is the one that you want to turn on.
And so, Neil, so let's say we turn on that event ID, right? We turn on that event ID. There's 100 of them in there. How do we know that something occurred? Like, what tools might you use, or how might you get that event ID comes up? How would you get that alert? With a monitoring tool or something like that?
Yeah, well, Tommy, we put network monitoring and a SIM tool in place, to Tom's point, that can see this malicious activity before it takes a foothold in your environment. So if you don't have the staff to sit there and watch for event logs and such, with a proper SIM tool, you can have a 24-hour SOC that we have, and they can see those malicious activities long before they can get a foothold in your environment and start causing some problems. After we remediated a handful of attacks in the past year with other clients, I can say that that's super crucial, and it's not something you'd want to delay putting in place. If you read most of the stories of these kinds of attacks, they show that what is generally considered to be basic level security measures are not in place, even at firms of all sizes, regardless of what their IT budgets are. So having those tools in place is very important.
Yes, whether you're leveraging your internal IT staff or you're leveraging a managed service provider of some sort, you want to have some kind of tool in the network, right, to monitor, alert, gather that historical evidence, right? That's great. Maybe we have a treat for everybody. Maybe we send them a sample report that we use. So maybe everybody will get two treats today, one from Tom and one from Neil. So Neil, one of the other questions, this is to you or Tom, to talk about how do you start that proactive response with some sort of security assessment? How do you maintain that with some project, some monthly project that just constantly checks? So can you give me some examples of that?
You want me to take that, Tom? This is Tom Nohs.
Yeah.
So one of the ways that we were proactive was to create this list that we went through that actually, I'll give you a quick example, was to go through all the administrative passwords, to go through, change all the passwords. When was the last time the passwords were changed? Service accounts, change the passwords on the service account. So there's a list of items that can be done on a proactive and annual, biannual basis that should be done. This is what Cornerstone has done in the past, where hacks have actually happened and we did not see any activity once we went through this full list of things. And actually, that is what helped me create the document called Minimum Security Settings for Lofts.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tom. And Neil, do you have any points that you might want to add to that?
And just to kind of capitalize on what Tom says, align yourself with an MSP like Cornerstone has dealt with ransomware attacks and security breaches in the past. Even you have an MSP that's dealt with one breach and addressed it successfully. The lessons you learn are tremendous. And in the cybersecurity world, with what we're experiencing now, all the experience you have definitely makes a difference. Again, regular security and risk assessments and scans, along with that good SIM tool, will make a significant difference in your security posture.
Fantastic. Thank you. And so I'd like to just summarize everything real quick. So it sounds like there's almost 3 steps. And the first step is to tighten up all the security, turn on all the loggings. Another step, whether you're using your internal staff or using a managed service provider, step number 2 might be have some form of monitoring tool, so this way you're alerted on the issue. And then I'd like to give everybody Tom Nohs' email address, tom.nohs@cornerstone.it. If you email him, he'd be happy to send you a copy of those settings, about 10 or 15 settings that you can do on your network today. If you have the staff, you can just grab that guide and get to work and start locking down your network. We'll have a second treat for you. Neil Failla, Neil.Failla, Failla. at Cornerstone.IT. We can put together a demo of one of the reports that we send out that demonstrates, on a daily, weekly basis to management that the network not only was locked down, but as new employees come in and as things change on the network, it stays locked down.
Right.
So that's my wrap up. Tom Nohs or Neil Failla, do you have anything else that you might want to close out on?
Yeah, I do. So one way to maintain a level of security is through the annual assessments, whether it's use an external auditor or actually simply do it yourself. Just create a list based on this document that I can send you, and you just do it annually, biannually, and it will help you. But sometimes you'll see that it's a procedural thing, and the better way is to use professionals that know how to do these things thoroughly. And that's the trick, is to do it thoroughly.
Thank you. And Neil?
Right there with Tom. Lock as many doors as possible with the list of top 10 or 12 things that we do, and what Tom is going to give everybody. And that will go a long way in keeping your firm and company safe from attack.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I'd like to thank everybody for staying with us during this podcast. And I'd like to hand it back to our friends over at ILTA to close it out. Thank you.
Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. We really do appreciate it. And as you know, when this is posted, you will see below everybody's direct contact information. So again, if you do have any questions for anybody a part of this today, you will be able to access their information there. So we hope you enjoyed today's podcast, and we hope everybody has a wonderful day.
You've been listening to ILTA Radio. Subscribe to ILTA's podcasts through iTunes or Podbean and get alerted about new recordings. ILTA Radio. Get tuned in.